Seems I've got to have a change of scene, 'cause every night I have the strangest dream.
Because I'm bad to the bone, baby. I started out this morning telling you my boots were made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. Then we threw little George Carlin with his satiric wit on top of that, and oh my God, did we get deep into it, and then everybody wants to rule the world. And, I tell you, ain't that America, and bad to the bone, man. Well, old Grandpa, he is, man. He's like, the Old West, man, all personified in one little characteristic being that just happens to radiate love from this 9,000 feet high perch in the Rocky Mountain sky here in Spaceship Love and Studio 420, man, and that's a plenty. Yeah, that is a reference to MJ all the way, boy. I caught 420 right on the nail head this morning. Babies, I was ready for you, man. I've been in tune for hours today. Been working on videos, picking up some new satiric wit here and there. I will caution you, some of these comedians use salty language. I edit, and I'm going to re-edit that one, Mr. Georgie there, just a wee bit, but it's such truthful words, man, but there is a couple of them there. Don't wrong. Well, anyway, I hope nobody took offense to that, man. I hope you feel it in the heartfelt way that I do. I see the humor in that. I love this guy. He's gone from us, man. Apparently a victim of the very thing he was talking about. But who knows, man, in this world, you speak up too loudly, too longly. In the old days, babies, and that you was in the way, and you was going to get removed one way or another. You know what I mean? There's been a momentum that's been like going on here in this world, especially from the U.S. government, Wall Street in particular, and all that kind of shit. Yeah, Wall Street and the government, same damn thing anymore, When I was a little kid, I used to listen to all these predictions about how the end times were coming. People were quite paranoid about that shit back in the 50s, especially with the nuclear bombs now hanging over our head. We've never participated in such horrible things ever before. But it was amazing we could even create such horror, such a destructive thing, Wow. So everybody's kind of paranoid back there in the 50s, kind of looking out for it. And they were all talking about, especially in my country, which was kind of Mormon country over there in Utah. So they're all paranoid. They're ready for the end times. And Jesus came back in 1943, didn't you know? That's why the war got over in 45. Well, there was all kinds of wild theories around. But, there was this prediction, and it's held true to this day, that the Constitution would be obliterated. There'd be blood running on the streets of the American cities all over the place, People were wanting to impose military. They were going to fix it so you had to have some kind of a mark, they called it back in those days. We know it's a biochip now, but one of those things in order to do business in this world. They've been working in that direction forever and ever. I watched them. They were really trying in the 70s, but the people were just too damn free back then. They couldn't go that far, I mean, they've been trying to impose this heavy iron will hand on us forever, and the government's been buying guillotines, 800 of them, man. We seen the purchase order online, man, 800 frickin' guillotines. What's the U.S. government doing with guillotines, eh? We're going to set up a museum somewhere and lop off a few heads just for old time's sake or something? I mean, come on, guys. Let's get real. So a person could really be sinking down in the deep shit, seeing what's going on over there in this comical place we call Washington, D.C., and New York City right there standing on top of it, and pushing its old heavy foot down on the White House and all that shit, We all know what's going on, shit. We've watched it happen since the 1950s. It took Ike and made him into some kind of patsy now, didn't you, Guy's been playing it forever, man. We've been watching you. We're not stupid, Americans, you think you've dumbed them down and drugged them out, and, a lot of them you have, but they were zombies in the first place. They were the ones that are going to follow your will no matter what, you dumb bums. See, that's what I mean about you guys that think you rock and roll, the powers that were, it wasn't. And neither were you, and neither were the people so sedated as you might think, There's a lot of awake and aware hearts in this reality now. Things have drastically changed. The gig is up, babies, and this is where you take your confidence, because you know that inside. You see it all around you. The gig is up. Yeah, they're trying, to be heavy-handed and impose martial law on the people. And they've been wanting to do, they just been itching to do that. You could see George Bushy Jr., man, just jumping up and down in his seat wanting to be Mein Führer, shit. He almost grew the little mustache. They probably had to slap his face 3 or 4 times to get him not to do it, Save him unwillfully, Clones don't always behave, Now you gotta understand the humor and the wit of the coyote medicine. It sees the joke in everything. Even George Carlin's dark humor. It sees the divine comedy, the divine paradigm working itself out. See, it's all about exposure, What's been going on forever that many of us have seen, but many people have been asleep to, now becomes so visibly present. And the idea is to is to impose the iron will on the people because it's too late now. It's too late to do anything about it. It's already in place, see. That's what they want you to think. They want you to think they got the heavy hand and they own everything, and you too, they're selling your birth certificates on the New York Stock Exchange. And I don't know how the hell that all works, but apparently there's all kinds of capitalistic frauds going on in this reality that it blow your jets. But see, now it's all being exposed. The big club, as old George calls it, it's all being exposed, see. It's not like they're just coming out from the closet, man, and they should. And as the light shines on them, it melts them down, man. All that intent, all that evil will, let's call it, that wants to destroy everyone, suddenly realizes it's only destroying itself. And it can't do that. There's love, in essence, in everything that's ever done or been done in this reality, Even the dumbass politicians have those elements, Clones, have feelings, And forgive me if I make reference to clones all the time and you don't particularly know what I'm talking about, is because our government, in secret, the dark side of it, the black ops as they call it, shoot. They've been doing things with genes since, back in the 30s, man, the 40s especially, where it really started getting heavy. And by the 50s and 60s, they were putting together human beings with other cosmic beings and shit, and it was just like weird. They've been trying to create this soldier that doesn't think, that shoots first and just, doesn't care, because they have trouble with human beings. You can only push them so far, they break. They don't work anymore, they hate slaughter. it goes against the grain, so it's kind of hard to get them to slaughter each other like we've been doing, It gets harder and harder, so they've been trying to, of course, and then they want super warriors, they've been reading the book of Revelations or something far too much, because, God, these guys have some very, very dark humor going on there. Honest to God, they were trying to create one with a scorpion tail and a reptilian face and shit. The ultimate warrior, with built-in weaponry, That's like, oh shit. You guys, you watch too many sci-fi cartoons. You need to go back and watch Pinky and the Brain a few times. Go numb for a while. Get your heart back, man. Jesus. See what I mean about lack of intelligence in that arena, that club that thinks they own everything? They don't realize how useless their money's become, and people are waking up. And they can't be persuaded even by billions anymore, trillions. Look at what you've been doing. Trying to buy off the world at the expense of not just the American people, but everybody that lives, man. You've been picking on us all, man. You're trying to impose that iron will across the earth. The New World Order, as Georgie Jr. and Sr. like to brag about, and Dick Cheney snickers about every time somebody says it. You guys are just bit players in a far larger scene, ain't you, man? The main characters are just about to be seen and released from duty. Because they don't belong here, we were invaded a long time ago. And when I said they don't belong here, I mean that in the sense they have no power here. They're in equity with all the rest of the universe, and all life lives in that equity, and there is not one that can hold a heavy hand over another, not one. Not as the people awaken and arise in the conscious presence of their heart. The bullshit goes out the window along with the bafflement of the boogeyman. You know what I mean? In Wall Street, geez, oh. You guys bankrupted the world so goddamn many times. You know, we're done with you. You know, you guys are insane. You're crazy. Out of your ever-loving, cotton-picking minds. There's no real plan other than let's just grab all we can and piss on the people. I mean, you know. Whew. And look who you pissed on. The wind was blowing against you now, wasn't it? You know, and it's still blowing against you, you know. And one of these days you're going to have to learn to turn and face that and let it melt your heart. And give it all back. Because, you know, there's people working in your organizations, you know, that know better. And even though they appear to be dark and devious and imperfect slavery to you, they ain't always doing it, man. And, you know, your money's been used in some creative ways to secretly empower the people. And many of these, the destiny of humanity is being revealed right now here in June, you know, as people awaken. And a lot of money, as you call it, is coming the people's way in various forms. And I'm not going to reveal any more than that, but I know that's happening, babies. I see it. I know you can see it too. You can conceive of it. Remember our little journey yesterday back to the homeland of the heart? Wasn't that fun? Well, it's kind of like this is what's happening in a metaphoric sense across the planetary reality we call Earth, Mother Gaia, and by other names too, you know. The oil industry is just about to be shut down because it's proven itself totally and completely irresponsible. Yeah, it's going to shake up transportation for a bit, but we can get minimal fuels and get by for a bit, babies, until we manage to make a conversion, you know. And there is a huge one coming. Like I said, some of this dark money, some of these trillions, I mean, they throw it around like it's water because they make it out of nothing, you know. So they don't always notice when $1 trillion turns up missing any more than the government does. Trillions and trillions. The government says, oh, what the hell? I don't know where it went. And if it did, it wouldn't tell you anyway. Everything's in secret, you see. So what we're talking about now is what's been done in secrecy, though it's been visible as hell to all of us that have been watching it. And, you know, I'm going to be playing some of these comedians during the week here that, you know, see through the irony of it and see the dark humor of it. Some of them aren't exactly in the same wavelength we are, but they are. You know what I mean, Jelly Bean? It takes awake hearts, even if they're hostile themselves, to bring forward truth. You know, it takes awakened beings to awaken others, you know. And so these guys were some of the forerunners, and they suffered because of it. You know, I mean, talk about Buddha and Jesus all wrapped up into one. There's George Carlin, Bill Hicks, people like that have, you know, had guts enough to talk about it on international television and in videos and movies and shit, you know, and weren't afraid to portray the government as the evil being that it is, you know, or Wall Street right along with it, etc. And because of this, they suffer greatly in their lives, in their professional lives in particular. They don't get the gigs, etc. You know what I mean? It's a limited income, baby. This old world knows how to choke you down. And then as if that ain't enough, then they come around with henchmen to shoot you, kill you, you know, or in some way or another make sure that your voice is no longer heard here, you know. That's the kind of business we've been doing behind the scenes forever here in this reality, you know. And it's been a whole lot darker than that. That's just the surface of it, you know. As I say, we were invaded quite some time ago. And these beings have no presence here as the invaders because we saw through even that mirage here just lately, right? You understand what I'm saying, babies? That, you know, even those that consider these external beings as something wicked and nasty and terrible, you know, many people awaken to the fact that they have been pushed around and maneuvered by energies that are separate from themselves, yet attached to them, as if it's inside of them sometimes, you know. Everybody here has been manipulated. This thing we see as human behavior is caustic and cruel and very unusual and is not our natural nature whatsoever. You see, that's why they've been trying to engineer some kind of genetic soldier, some kind of genetic, you know, Frankenstein or Godzilla that can just kill with impunity and not think twice about it. They don't realize, you know, this kind of stuff tends to backfire on you big time, you know. And had they ever created such a presence, they came pretty close, but at the same time, it's stupid to even think you could do that, because it's so contrary to creation, you see. And so the flow of life would be against it from the start, no matter how you cram the genes together, you see. There's a natural flow in life. And when you're trying to move upriver, you're going against the stream of it, and that's what they've been doing. And guess what? Ultimately, you exhaust yourself, and you turn around and flow with it. And that's exactly what's happening now in this month of May and June of this 2015. It's a reversal of the flow in completion of the heart. And we feel it in fullness already, right along with the darkness that's being revealed, you know, and it's not so painful after all. We can take its presence in the daylight. We can pay attention, yes, to what's been going on in the dark. You know, because the bright sunlight's shining on it now. You see this truth very clearly. And see beyond the meanness, see beyond the deviousness, the cruelty, what you call evil. See beyond all of that. See the bigger picture. See the actors in the play. See that there has to be a boogeyman in the movie, a bad guy. As if they're not, nobody believes it, you know. It's all about good and evil, right? It's all about seeing through that shit. See, 'cause nobody can be evil. Though in this world it's demonstrated daily in almost every life that evilness exists, right? I mean, shit. We crap on each other like it's going out of style when we don't think twice about it, because that seems like normal life in the business world, in the working world, in the political world, the movie, and etc., etc., etc. It goes everywhere. You know, but as I say, as presences come back to life and realize in themselves, as human beings, the conscious presence of a loving creation, a loving creating heart inside of themselves, well, that presence releases others too. I mean, you know, that's called ascension. That's called awakening. That's called human empowerment. It's kind of like we come alive in our innocent selves, our baby-like selves that has been held in reserve inside of our heart since somewhere not too long after our birth in this lifetime. And now all the elements of that baby heart, that innocent heart, come forward now because we allow it to be. We see past the boogeyman. We're not afraid of anything. It's kind of like a little baby stepping forward, but he's armed to the teeth. He's got 6 guns on his hip, and he's ready, man, you know, riding right on a belt right over his diaper. You know what I mean? You know, there's a little halo over his head, too. You know he ain't going to miss. And he's far quicker than you ever dreamed of being. You know that. Bad to the bone and then some. The baddest baby you ever saw. You see what's really happening here? Love's about to make itself very, very clear in every life that lives here, including yours and mine. And it's about God-blessed time, wouldn't you say? Time that we come back to the fields of life and learn to play. Learn to be in harmony. Learn to be in love with one another again in that way that is so poetically expansive, it's just unbelievable. Because when you love yourself, you can love someone else and everything else in the most bodacious of manner, wouldn't you say? I mean, there's no other word to describe it. It's bodacious. It's big. It's broad. It's beautiful. It's delicious. It's nutritious. It's expansive. Build strong bodies in 13 billion ways, man. Way better than Wonder Bread back in the day, man. Oh, some of you won't understand the poetry of that humor, but those that have been around for a few years will. Thank you very much. See, it's all about coming back to life. See, the joke's on them, the joke's on us. One, you can't be that evil and rule the world. It just doesn't work. You're pushing uphill. You're running contrary to the stream. The flow is against you, always. That's why darkness, when it did have its day 120 million years ago, and you guys know what I'm talking about. Others may not, but you do. You know, well, anyway, 120 million years ago, it realized it couldn't keep a hold in like that. It had to work beneath the current. It had to work in the subcurrents and stuff and find the little eddies that would let it backflow a little bit and shit. It had to resort to subterfuge, in other words. It couldn't hold, and that's exactly what it's trying to do right now, put a worldwide hold on every person there is. But at the same time, it can't. It goes against the stream. Just why it couldn't create the genetic warrior it so long sought to. And when it got close, the thing started turning on them because they were conscious presences. They couldn't breed out the consciousness. They tried and tried and tried. Talk to somebody about the Dolce experiments, man. Of course, it goes far further than that. It wasn't just genetic. But babies, when that truth comes out, and it is, I see it here on YouTube, I see it, around. When that truth comes out, don't be so horrified. Be glorified in your heart that, you didn't know about it, because you might have gone over there and then caused murder and mayhem at the time, because it would have caused a very reactive thing within you had you known about it, because these people are seditiously evil, and purposely so, those that run it, I mean. The government, the medical establishment, the military in particular, and some of the ETs they associate with. And again, you got to understand, we're players in a larger play. That's the only way this kind of stuff could even be allowed to be present. See how contrary to life it is? It just doesn't work. You'd think we would have learned this back in the Babylonian days or the Atlantean days that preceded them. You'd think we would have learned all this, and we'd be way past that lesson by now. And, instead of messing with the central essence of life, be the central essence of life and watch as creation flows into the way we want it to be. See, but you can't do that from the mind, least of all the scientific mind. It's a creation of the heart. See, the consciousness is not present in the mind. It seems like it might be, but it's in all of you. But it's centered right there in your heart. And even some of the scientists have been proving this. I seen an article about it the other day. Consciousness is beyond the brain. What a shocking thing, eh? We ain't just all about intellect, are we? In fact, some of the smartest of us, some of the dumbest of us, when we're all drawn up into our intellect, we get kind of pinchy in our thinking, and it's very narrow and it's very focused, and you're real specialized, Nothing wrong with that. I mean, you can do that and be that, but it makes it a little harder to be a conscious presence here, doesn't it? Yeah, a whole lot harder. Can't even bend over and tie your shoes anymore. You see what I mean? Even though you got $5 billion in the bank because you found out something they really didn't want the people to know, and they paid you off good. Better than getting killed now, ain't it? And you shut up and threw it all away, right? Broke your heart, put you to sleep, but you did it. You co-opted. You took the red pill. I think that's the one, right? You sold out. But what else could you do? The flow was against you, right? At least that's the way you saw it. But now as you become conscious of the bigger stream of life, you see that flow's been against everybody and everything. It's been against creation, you see, and it's overwhelmed by the ever-present flow of the love of creation. Creation even loves its abominations. That's why they're allowed to appear and do that kind of stuff for a little while here, where it's kind of like a dreaming world, and it can't really hurt anything other than us that reside here and go through the motions with it, you see. And even that pain is somewhat superficial on a spiritual level. You feel it physically, you feel it spiritually, yes, but you don't really feel it. As you become awakened in this tiny child, you realize you've always been this tiny child. And yeah, the child's kind of wild and bad to the bone, but in a soft, heartfelt sort of way. And this child is wise beyond anything that goes on here. Anything. I mean, it's got the presence of the universal heart in itself, innocently so. And so there isn't anything it doesn't know. It's got access to everything, for it is everything. It's the God-child, the seed. And that's us awakening. Each and every one of us as we start our flight this day. Now, how's that for a sweet little wake-up call this morning? Don't let nothing get in your way, babies. Spread them wings and fly away. Just be who you are. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. You know what reality is. You know how to live in it now, don't you? You see? Grandpa will surround you with his ever-loving arms and heart and assures you that Divine Mother is just as real as Divine Father, because they are the same. The hot chick is the hot. You know what? It's the same thing as poetry. You see, there isn't any real separation at all. We're unified in the heart and blessed because of it. Now ain't we? Coyote Medicine Show here on the Hazy Radio Network. Your first little morning wake-up call. Second little, was it third? Hell, I don't know. We're getting on in the time. Maybe, who cares? We just live with it and love ourselves for it, man, as we expand beyond the restrictions of time and distance and step into the superior spatial reality, which is the truth of life, living in everything, everyone, and all of us arising from that ocean of love, that sparkly fire of life. Every one of us. There's equity in all life. You ain't no better than the cactus ain't no better than you, etc. We're all a singular conscious presence in motion, moving through the heart, which empowers and animates all the rest of us, including the mind. That's the spirit being. That's the physicality in the reality of love, the truth that lives inside of each and every one of us, revealing itself. Say it isn't so. It is. It just flows. And you don't have to believe me. Just be me. Just be you. You see, that's what I'm starting to see, is this one presence in everyone. And yeah, it could be me, but it's not. It's that being that is being in everyone. We all have our personal applications. That's the beauty of our experience here. The individuated thing. It's personal, yes, but it's also universal because it's the same person doing it. We're just doing little aspects, little bit parts in the reality that prop and support the whole thing and keep it going. Without us, it collapses, you see. And that's another part of the magic, too, of those that have gone against the flow, how we change the tragic into our triumph is, well, the more love awakens, the more empowered we are in that flow of life, and the more that other one weakens. And, illusions can only hold for so long. Hypnosis always wears off. Sometime. You see, and maybe we've been put deeply to sleep for some very divine reasons and caused to live in this brutal and uncivilized way for so many eons of time now. Because we were trying to work out some wrinkle in creation or some inequity. I'm not even sure. I know there's a larger purpose being served here. And it's always a motion of love, because I feel that. And I feel, even as I'm speaking of it, the divine presence arising in each one of us. And embracing us in its arms, saying, it's all right, child. You can come home now. You've learned your lessons, and you've learned your lessons well. And you don't have to repeat them anymore. The season of cycles and seasons is over with. The dream dissolves away now, as you realize the true love that we are inside of each and every one of you. Light, dark, and everything in between, no matter how controlled or contained or how free and independent you may be. You are that personal person, the prodigal children of the universe coming home. Because finally we released you to it. You went far enough with it. You allowed yourselves to be it, to live it, to immerse yourselves in it, that which was so contrary to you. And you endured incredible pain and hardship, which is sometimes symbolized in the sacrifices that others make for you. But it's your durability, your sacrifice, that makes it possible. And when you realize that it never has been a sacrifice, that it's been a sheer joy to be here and live through these agonizing ways and days, for the few sweet moments of love that we gain there, the moments of awakening, how we've carried the universal heart through its most trying times, and withstood the deepest of tests, gone more farther with it than anyone else ever has before. It's a whole new paradigm now because of it. We learned how to put away feeling so we would embrace feeling. We didn't even know what feeling was before we took it away from ourselves, or at least thought we did. That's a hard feeling now, isn't it? To be empty and cold like an iceberg, you know. But even iceberg has life and love in it. It floats around on the ocean, and innocently so. It ain't out there to sink no boats or nothing. It's just out there to feed the ocean back its frozen water, just a little drop at a time. As it flows further southward and warms up, drops become streams, and streams become a flow, and pretty soon there ain't no iceberg anymore, you see. Well, we've been riding on one of those for quite some time now, but it's just about all melted away. That's the stream. That's the flow. And what happens when it melts away? It becomes part of the greater ocean, right? Is it any longer conscious of its presence as an iceberg? No. That was just a shape and a form it took for a while, but when the sun began to warm it up and the waters around it too, well, it took on all kinds of different shapes and forms. It morphed like crazy, you know, until it just melted down to be the water it is, the glittering, glowing, alive, refreshed water, because it was frozen for a while and got rid of some impurities, you know. That's humanity. That's the iceberg side of love. And see, we're right there at the melting point now. It's finally, you know, splashing down the last few speckles into the water. And there is no ice anymore. The heart has melted it away. The baby child arises, and guess what? Those 6 guns on his hip are squirt guns, man, filled with, you know, sweet water and magic dust and shit, you know. It take you out all right and bring you back in the process, you see. That's what makes them so bad to the bone, that little baby standing there in the middle of the street there in Dodge City, ready for just about anything, you know, and everything. Anybody want to come my way, I'm the baddest they ever was, right? Isn't that what he's saying, that innocent little child? And laughing his ass off while he's doing it. As all the ladies hide behind the doors that line the streets and peek through the windows to see who's going to be the bigger fool to try and challenge him. Oh, I think I see Snidley, cowardly Snidley's coming over. No, that ain't him, just somebody that looks kind of like him. But there is a dark figure at the end of the street there. It ain't Snidely Whiplash, and it ain't Simon Legree. Oh gosh, it ain't no dark no more, man. Look at that, it's turned bright as an angel, man. Well, illusions dissolve quickly these days, don't they, man? Isn't it sweet we never have to face down with anyone anymore? It's over, babies. All we got to do now is be the flow. You know, you can't just go with it because you already are. Now you just be the flow. That's all. You know, be conscious and present in it. Have a great time doing it. Grandpa loves you so, man. Don't you know?
You're feeling alright. I'm not feeling too good myself.